Well, the far left digital sphere, whatever it is dying, or something's happening to it. We have this story from The Hill. A poll finds 58% say press more likely now to jump to conclusions. Why? Because they're in a desperate race to the bottom. Look at Covington, good example. But I have a prediction. About this. Right now, people are ragging on Shane Dawson. If you know who he is, he's a YouTuber, he's huge, he's got like 20 million subs or something. I don't watch his videos, but he released a series called Conspiracy Theories. It's like a 2-hour-long video, and there's some controversy around it. But now he's being dragged for tweeting to Paul Joseph Watson saying that he loved his content in reference to his video, and the left is dragging him now and going after him. Look at PewDiePie. PewDiePie doesn't even fit in the political space because he talks about memes all day. Memes about him! Like he's got PewDiePie submissions. What happens? The far left writers are being laid off, okay? They're losing their jobs. YouTubers are growing and expanding. YouTubers are doing better and better every day. Not all YouTubers, but many of them. So what happens then? When you've got 20 million people following Shane Dawson, 83 million following PewDiePie, okay? And then the media comes out and attacks them, calls them Nazis, alt-right, and all these awful things, and drags them. The kids, and I don't mean like children, I mean just like young people who watch these people, PewDiePie, Shane, and whoever else. The people who like them are like, dude, you're lying. Like, what are you doing? So you have this, right? We'll read this story, and then I'll jump into the next bits. Oh God, yeah, another story. More layoffs in media. That was the point. But then you have this is what we'll talk about later. This is a guy who said, Shane Dawson with 20 million subscribers praising Paul Joseph Watson. Yeah, nothing you can do about it. So let's read what The Hill has to say. More people think reporters in today's fast-paced environment are likely to make hasty judgments about the news than in past years, according to a Hill-Harris-X poll released Friday. 58% of registered voters contacted for the survey said they believed reporters were more likely to jump to conclusions about events than before. Just 14% said contemporary reporters were less likely to do so, while 27% said things were about the same as previously. Majorities of all age groups in the survey said journalists form conclusions too rapidly. Gen Xers, adults between 35 and 49, stood out as the most cynical, with 64% saying that the media were too hasty, higher than the 56% of other age groups who agreed. Men were more likely to believe journalists did not take enough time to validate their stories, with 63% saying this. A smaller majority of women, 54%, agreed. I think this poll is not surprising. It's devastating. Carl Cannon, the Washington bureau chief of Real Clear Politics, said Friday on What America's Thinking, Hill TV's show about public opinion and policy. I think the problem is worse than this poll shows, he added, arguing that Republicans and Democrats are more likely to regard the media with suspicion when their party controls the presidency. I think it would be even worse if you took this partisan aspect out of it. In the Hill-Harris-X survey, Republicans were considerably more likely to think journalistic standards had declined in recent years, with 82% saying this. 29% said today's reporters were about as likely to form hasty conclusions than in prior years. Just 15% said they were less likely. Yeah, look at Covington. Who would think otherwise? I don't know what these 15% is, but they must be living under a rock. Independents mostly agree with Republicans, with 60% saying reporters are quicker to form hasty judgments about the news. 30% said journalists were about as likely as before. Okay, and 11%. Think about that. If independents are leaning in the direction of Republicans, that says something about why Trump wins, why Republicans have done so well, and what's likely going to happen in 2020. If independents, the people you need to win, are leaning towards the same line of thinking as Republicans, then I'm going to have to make that bet. Only 23% of Democrats said reporters today were less likely to jump to conclusions. 39% said journalists did so about the same, while 38% said media professionals do so more often. Think about that. 82% basically saying reporters jump to conclusions, but only 38% of Democrats thought so. Democrats just trust the media. And I think this is what makes the big divide, especially with YouTube. You go on YouTube because you're looking for alternative news. You're looking for something outside of the mainstream because you don't necessarily trust one individual source. So you look for people you think might be more relatable, more honest. You leave CNN, you leave MSNBC, you leave even Fox News. For the most part, somewhat Fox News. But Democrats don't do that. Democrats sit and uncritically watch CNN and MSNBC and start believing, I'll say it, nonsense. And don't get me wrong, Fox News has their nonsense too. Like I mentioned, it was only a few weeks ago they ran an anti-evolution segment in the morning and I just rolled my eyes and I'm like, I'm gonna change the channel. Come on, man. But anyway, let's read on. Skepticism about the news media has always been high, but it is particularly increased among Republicans thanks to President Trump's frequent and often vitriolic condemnations of news reports that he dislikes. I disagree. I think there's different ways you can look at this. Trump's sentiment about the fake news is because of the fake news, not the other way around. Republicans distrust the media not because Trump is saying it. Trump is saying it because his base distrusts the media. It's not one or the other. It's a little bit of both. All right, and you can frame it as, oh, people hate the media because Trump told them to. I'm like, that's not true, man. There's a reason why the Republicans have called it the liberal media forever. Okay, Republicans have ragged on the mainstream media forever, as long as I've been alive. Okay, so I'm not going to act like Trump is the one who created this. In April, Quinnipiac University found that 51% of self-identified Republicans said that it was more accurate to describe the press as the enemy of the people instead of an important part of democracy. Just 37% of GOP respondents agree with the latter characterization. Right, but you have to recognize these journalists today, these clickbait, ragebait, garbage writers, they get things wrong, they retract, they don't care. Look, how could anybody think that we're in a good position with journalism when Covington happened? You know what the problem is? There's a lot of problems, but one of them is that these journalists follow each other on Twitter, and they're in a circle. It's a big circular nonsense, a game of telephone with each other. So one person will say something like, "Did you hear that Donald Trump did a backflip?" And then the next person they told will go like, "I heard Donald Trump did 2 backflips." The next person will be like, "Whoa, Donald Trump was doing backflips, was like a routine?" And then it goes back to the first person, and someone says to them, "Did you hear that Donald Trump did a full gymnastics floor routine?" They'll go, "Wow, I didn't hear that." Not realizing they started the rumor. You get it? Like, maybe I can do a better analogy. You call someone right-wing. The next person says, "Oh, those conservative wingnuts." The next person says, "Oh, he's one of those far-right wingnuts." Then it goes back to the first person who goes, "Oh, I didn't realize they were far-right. I just called them right-wing." And they make their own nonsense in a big circle of circle jerking each other. These people need to get off Twitter. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. Some journalists have argued that the widespread use of social media sites like Twitter has increased the number of errors made by news professionals. I just did that. Okay. Everything about Twitter's interface encourages a mindset antithetical to journalistic inquiry. It prizes image over substance and cheap dunks over reasoned debate, all the while severely abridging the temporal scope of the press. New York Times columnist Farhad Manjoo wrote in a January 23 column that examined criticisms of other media for its coverage of highly charged confrontation they're talking about Covington. CNN reported that Twitter suspended the anonymous account that first shared an out-of-context excerpt of the argument after the social network found it was utilizing the profile image of a Brazilian woman without her permission. A researcher specializing in Russian online disinformation told CNN that the story was promoted heavily by fake Twitter accounts. Go figure. And these journalists who complain about Trump collusion are literally the ones being taken for a ride and pumping out fake news, okay? The latest Hill-Harris-X survey was conducted. Okay, we don't care. So they have it all here. But now I want to go to my more... yes, we'll mention McClatchy follows BuzzFeed, Vice, and others in cutting staff. However, McClatchy is newspapers. It's not the same as the digital, so we'll move on from there. But then let's talk about Nathan Bernard, who tweeted, "This is a YouTuber with 20 million subscribers praising Prison Paul from InfoWars for his great work. Radicalization on YouTube is very real. The platform is a cesspool of far-right reactionaries." That's fake news, okay? We've seen the data. I've done many videos about it. We know that the funnel actually goes towards mainstream leftist channels. And that's likely on purpose because the far left, the people at BuzzFeed and these other platforms, repeatedly berate and attack and freak out advertisers. So YouTube bends over backwards to try and maintain this left-wing funnel. That's breaking, especially with these layoffs and a lack of trust in media. That's breaking. And that's good news for YouTube. Believe it or not, I know a lot of people are mad at Google for their bias, but Google does more, or I should say YouTube does way more to protect free speech than any of these other platforms. I'm not saying they're doing a good job, but you can have a channel where you can say the things I say. People get banned from Twitter for saying similar things. Like Jesse Kelly and CJ Pearson, really good examples, banned for no reason that we can understand, reinstated later. YouTube does better. But here's the thing. What do you think's going to happen? When Shane Dawson has tons of young people who are fans, he says, "I love your stuff." People will watch Paul Joseph Watson. I wouldn't call that radicalization because Paul Joseph Watson isn't openly calling for violence or anything like that. He's just a conservative kind of guy. But they call it radicalization because they're fringe left. They're as far left as you can go, and they've been given undue power. YouTube is a meritocracy. You want to survive on YouTube, you got to work hard. The far left BuzzFeed, that was subsidy. That was subsidy from rage bait the investors who wanted to see clicks, so the companies brought on people who didn't deserve the influence they had, and they utilized these massive platforms and massive investor money to pump out ridiculous ideology, and now it's all going away because it didn't make sense. But YouTube, Shane Dawson, even Paul Joseph Watson, meritocracy. You might not like it, but what they're doing is totally legal, totally within the rules of YouTube, and that's too bad for you. If you want to counter these ideas, you need to counter them, not complain that people are talking about it. Because all that happens when you do this is people trust the media less. Straight up less. And when young people hear you attacking the people they like, they're going to trust you even less. So I'm going to end here. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. I'll have more videos tomorrow at 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and then on my main channel, youtube.com/Timcast, starting at 4 p.m. I'll see you then.